everyone, my name's Michelle, also known as Shelly Shucker, and I am a local artist and educator here in Albuquerque. And today, thanks to Any Given Child and Catharsis Media, we're going to do some art together. And so today, the name of our project is called Colorful Paper for Collaging. And this is for kindergarten through second grade. Of course, anybody can do it, but it's going to be really great for that age. And so, yeah, I'm super excited, and I just want to remind you that when you're doing art, we're just here to have a good time. You can always get your wiggles out, take nice big breaths. We could do that together right now. Okay, and so we're going to have so much fun making all these different colors. So what we're going to need are a few materials. Paper is going to be really important. Things to make colors. So markers, crayons, paint brushes, if you have crayons, if you have colored chalk, anything. So we're going to use a whole bunch of different colors on one page to start with. And then we're going to save these really beautiful textured colored pieces of paper to use for a different project. You can use them however you want, but I will be leading another lesson later that you'll be able to chime into and find out different ways to use these really beautiful pieces of art that you're going to make right now. So you can go ahead and plan to get some of those materials, and then let me just go over a couple other things of what's going to happen. What are we even doing? So what we're going to be doing is on one piece of paper, we'll choose a color, let's say red, and we'll make all the different shapes and lines and textures using the different materials that we talked about to make like a red piece of paper, kind of a fun, different patterned red piece of paper. We'll put that aside. We'll choose another color, and we'll do that all over again. And each page will be different. You'll have a chance to scribble in different ways, make marks in different ways, and then we'll put that aside. So you can do the whole rainbow, you can do black, you can do brown, whatever colors you want, but you'll have this really cool repertoire of different colored papers to use, like I said, for a different project that maybe we'll cut stuff out of. We'll talk about that another time. So here are some other things to think about is what are these different ideas and different terms that we're going to be exploring in art? And the first one, of course, is color. But, you know, we're all like, okay, yeah, color. But when we really look around, we can see lime green. We could see a grass green, a deep forest green. Same thing with yellow. There's sun yellow, there's canary yellow, all different types of colors. So as you can see, when you look at your crayons, sometimes they have like, I always like, that'd be such a fun job to name like different colors, but it's really just about really looking around at the world and seeing how many different types of yellow there are, how many different types of black there are. So that's about colors. And then we're going to be doing texture. So what is texture? Texture is like, if you look at an orange, see it's how it's bumpy? That is the texture of the orange versus like the banana. It's like more smooth. So all kinds of texture. Hair has texture, floor has texture, the clouds, trees. So what is the surface quality of something? And we're going to be able to explore that, how we do that with our materials. And then this is kind of similar, but the last thing I wanted to talk about is line quality. So when we make a line, you know, we sign our name, we write our name, we write a letter. That's a certain type of line. When we're drawing, we can go from a really skinny line to a really thick line depending on how we're holding our tool. You can make squiggly lines, you can make really straight, sharp lines, and so that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be exploring and having fun with while working with the color and the texture. So yeah, get your materials, make sure you have a nice clean space, cleared off space. And I'm going to be using some paint, and so a water-based paint. So you'll also need a cup of water, and I encourage you to get different kinds of brushes if you are going to paint, and just as many different materials as you can use, and just have a clean surface that might need to be protected depending on what table and whose table that is. Okay, so hey, let's get into it. Okay, hey everyone, I hope you had some fun getting some materials together. The brushes, your paints if you have any, markers, things to draw with, and some paper. And as you can see, I just did a simple way of covering the table. So if you even just have a couple extra pieces of paper, I laid those down underneath, put my larger piece of paper on top. Why is this important? Because you can see here these examples that I made, and when we're filling our page, I really do mean fill the page. So you can go all the way to the edges so that when we are going to cut these out in our later lesson, you'll be able to use all the parts of the paper. So if you do have a chance to cover your table, go ahead and do that. And yeah, so this is what we're doing is we'll have a piece of paper, and you can see each one has different marks on it. So it's really an opportunity to explore how creative you can be making marks and using color. And it's not that all the green is the same. So what I've done first is I'm going to move ahead and do with orange and kind of a turquoise. And so I pulled out all of the orange colors that I have, crayons and markers and color pencils, and I'll put those in a group, and then same thing with my turquoise. And then I also have my paint. I'm going to do the paint at the end because I don't know if you've done this before, but when you put crayon, even pencil first on the paper, and then you put your paint over the top, this really cool thing happens where the paint lifts on top of those surfaces. So that's a really fun thing to do. And yeah, just make sure you have some water if you're going to paint. And I just wanted to give a shout out to this artist who has inspired me as an artist and a teacher with this book called Scraps, Notes from a Colorful Life. And Louis Ehlert is the person's name. And just wanted to show you a couple things for inspiration before we get started, which is, if you look closely, you'll see the orange or the yellow of the fruit. And so this is the kind of texture that we're going to be developing on our page so that we can use it later to cut out the shapes. So just wanted to show you that. And then right here, she keeps her scraps, like the things that we're gonna make, she keeps those in a little paper clip to use later. So she's always using these little scraps for her colorful life and colorful art making. And then I wanted to show you the green, how she used the green for asparagus. So that's kind of like for another time, but just to show you kind of where we're going with making all this colorful paper. So let's get started. And listen, the lines and everything you make, totally up to you. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I'm making my lines as an inspiration, a little bit of a guide, but don't feel like you have to make yours the same as mine. So I would just start with I have an oil pastel or a crayon, and just start making lines. Maybe circles like me. I'm going to start doing circles because I'm thinking about those oranges. And you can see here why it's important to have this protection on the table so that I don't have to kind of stop my line, so I can really get into it. And this is where you can just like take big breaths and just like let emotion and experience just flow through you. And already I think this looks very cool. The orange is filling up. So then I'm going to take my pencil, and I have like 3 or 4 different oranges here, and then I'm just going to start coloring in different spaces. And it's just fun to try, different mark making, like what we talked about in the beginning, to fill in the space. I always like to keep a pencil sharpener close by because I do press. I'm a person that doesn't do anything very lightly or delicately, so my pencil tip gets blunt pretty quick. So yeah, once I feel satisfied, and I hope you're feeling good, like color and line and texture is just something that makes me happy. So I hope you're feeling happy too. And then I'm gonna switch to maybe one more color of orange. I'll try this one, back to kind of a crayon. And here I'm just gonna fill it in thickly. And then here comes one of my favorite parts is, I'm going to put a little marker too. I was going to jump to the paint, which is what I really also love. But the marker, because as you know, if you've painted, it's like you can put your marker and your crayons on top of the paint, but you have to wait, which is a fine thing. But I kind of like to put all of this in first, all my drawing materials, and then I'm going to paint at the end. So I have it like this now. And then I'm going to mix my paint. And as I'm working, I just always kind of like to reorganize because I am a messy person, messy artist. So it helps me just to kind of keep organizing my space when I'm working. And it helps me feel not stressed out, you know. It makes me feel just like, okay, I know where everything is. Nothing's too crazy. And so also I mentioned getting different brushes. So you can see here I have a big flat brush and a round, kind of a bigger one, and then I kind of have the same thing but tiny. So we'll play around and see. So if you do have an opportunity to have access to a couple different sizes brushes, that can be fun too. So let's go for, well, I'm doing orange. I don't know what color you're doing, but it'd be cool if you ever took pictures of what you're making, and maybe we can have you send them to APS or Any Given Child or Catharsis Media, because we would love to see what you're making. So as you probably know, when you're mixing paint, use the water and really get this kind of saturated so it's flowing. This is called watercolor. If you have tempera or acrylic, that can work too. And then I'm just going to paint over these areas. And here I'm just using big flat strokes. And then I'm going to come back and work with a little bit of a smaller brush. But you can see how there's this resist between the water and the oil or the wax of the crayon, which I think is really cool. And as you can see, I'm going to the edges, so the whole page is getting filled. And then I'll use a small brush just to mix it up and just add to these little dots. But you can see how now this is like a different texture. So the way that we use our brush or our tool is creating a different texture. Oh, and I'm gonna bring in another orange. I feel lucky, I have a lot of different colors here. But you can always just, if you have, you know, the standard colors, you could mix a little yellow with your orange or a little red maybe, and then you would go for a yellow orange, yellow red. Because color mixing is a cool thing too. It's a fun thing to practice. So I'm just about finished with this one. I'm going to add a little bit of this bright, rich orange up here, kind of called like a cadmium. And there. Okay, so here's my piece of orange paper. I'm super excited about it. I hope that you like yours too. And then I'm just going to show you one more just to go through maybe different ways of making some marks. And this is something that you can continue. As you can see, before I came to do this video lesson, I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different, and it was hard for me to stop because I was having so much fun. But now I can add orange to my collection, and I'll do one more. The turquoise that I picked out that I wanted to do. And sometimes it's fun to even change the orientation of your page just to, you know, just see what happens. That's the cool thing with art, is you can just change it up. And when it's your piece of art, in my opinion, you can do whatever you want. Especially for something like this. Okay, so now for the turquoise. Kind of like I'm thinking sky. What other things are blue? Birds, water. Okay, so this is a chalk pastel. The one I used before was oil, so it's a little bit different. I'm going this way. Cars can be blue. I think that there's not enough colorful cars in the world anymore. So you can make blue cars. What else? Clothing. All kinds of things can be blue. Blueberries. And so now I'm going with my oil pastel and making wavy lines. And the fun thing is there's really no rules here. So you can just like try it whatever you want. Some straight lines down here. And then I'll go to my color pencil. Let's see, what am I going to do with the color pencil? I'm going to do straight lines across. But there's just so many possibilities. And good thing I have this paper underneath, so it's a little bit messy. And guess what? I see my fingerprints, so I'm going to tap my fingerprints all over. And every person is different. Every artist is different. I know some people are like, I don't want to get my hands dirty. That's not me. But that's fine if that's you. And you just take it and do it how you want. So that, and then marker. So I'm going to go for this turquoise marker. And you can see how every time you put a new mark on, it changes the whole thing. It adds to it and makes it more dynamic or maybe more interesting. And then just like the artist, Lewis, I'm not sure how to say her last name exactly right, so I don't want to mess it up, but I think it's Hartlert. And anyways, so then the artist saves all of her little scraps. And so that's something that is really cool. You can like save this for another time. Or personally, they look like they could be their own pieces of art to me. And then I'm going to put my paint on. This time I'll use my big wide one and just stroke it across. Kind of looks like a stormy sky to me. And then I did this in my other blue one. I couldn't help myself, but I did some like splashes. So to do that, just make sure you get lots of water and load up your brush with the pigment. And then it actually isn't too messy. And then I put my finger out like this and then just tap down. And then we'll get the little sprinkles. Okay, one more time. Sprinkles, and then I decided I want to put a little bit of more blue right here in the center. But leaving the page white can also be cool. You can see that white coming through, and that will create like light in your composition. And then I'm just going to move that around. And then here we have my turquoise one. So I hope you will continue experimenting. You can keep working on it now, or maybe later in the day, or on the weekend, or another time when you just feel like you want to make some more colorful paper, and then set them aside and save them for our next project. I hope that I'll meet you again to cut these pieces of paper out and create a story with them. Hey, that was so fun. Look at all these beautiful pieces of paper that we have. Hang on to those because we're going to use them later. And let's just think about all the fun things we did. We did line quality, we did texture, we explored different colors, and we had so much fun. I hope you did. I know I did. And I just want to thank Catharsis Media, Any Given Child, you, your family, everybody who helped to get this great fun experience for us to have together. And just a reminder, check out the next video with me where we're going to use these collage color pieces of paper to tell a story. Thank you. See you next time.